نحمده ونصلي على رسوله الكريم. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. ربي زدني علما، ربي زدني علما، ربي زدني علما. اللهم فقهنا في الدين، اللهم فقهنا في الدين، اللهم فقهنا في الدين. آمين يا رب العالمين. Okay, so inshallah we will start today. Let me share my screen first. Okay. Okay, so last week we did ayah number 62, 63, and 64, and we talked about, we were still in the history of Bani Israel, and we were talking about Jews, Christians, and Sabians, and whoever believed in Allah and the last day and did righteous deed, they will have their rewards with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and no fear will come concerning them. And then we talked about then when the mountain was raised over the people of Israel, and it was told to them to hold on tightly to their mithaq, to their covenant that they had done, and then they turned away even after that. And if it was not for the favor of Allah, then they would have been among the losers. So, anybody remembers anything from last time or anything during the week? Anything you would like to share? Absolutely anything at all. Okay, we'll continue then, inshallah. So today we will cover ayah number 65 and 66. They're not that long in ayah, but they cover an incident. So I wanted to stick to just these two ayah for today and then cover the next incident in the next ayahs from 67 onwards. So next week we'll be doing quite a few ayahs, but today we will do just these two ayahs. Again, the small ayat, but lot of lessons and very important incident in the history of Bani Israel for all of us. So let's start with ayah number 65. We'll play the ayah first, inshallah.
ولقد علمتم الذين اعتدوا منكم في السبت فقلنا لهم كونوا قردة خاسئين.
Next one.
فجعلناها نكالا لما بين يديها وما خلفها وموعظة للمتقين.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد, ayah number 65. ولقد, wa is and, laqad is, la is for emphasis as well, and qad is for emphasis as well. So indeed, so it's like almost like saying double emphasis on something. And this like highlighted and double highlighted, and like if we were writing a Word document, we would make something in the document, we would make something bold and underlined and highlighted, and we'll put some color highlighter on it as well. So you're like highlighting in many times, right? So that's the connotation that the kind of image that we can have with walaqad. So walaqad, wa and laqad, indeed, definitely, certainly. Al Alimtum, it comes from the root word ain, lam, and mim. Alama, we know like from knowing, right? So alam, alim, al alim is one of the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's the most knowing. And we've learned about those who know. And so we've seen this word in many different ways before. So alimtum means you knew. So all of you. Tum here refers to all of you. Alimtum, all of you knew. And indeed, there is no doubt about it, definitely. You all knew alladina, those who. So the people in the Prophet ﷺ is reciting these ayat, and at that time the audience, the Bani Israel, are listening to this. The leaders, the religious leaders, and the common people of Jewish ancestry, they're listening to these ayat, and the Prophet ﷺ is saying, and you all know. And the Quran is addressing them and saying, and you all knew. And even today, the people who come from the people of the book, the Jewish and the Christian backgrounds, when they listen, they have read about this incident in their books before, and they have read it in much more detail. Actually, Quran doesn't. Quran touches about them and about the crimes and the things that Bani Israel did, But if you read Old Testament and New Testament, there are actually a lot of detail about different crimes that they did. So Quran actually goes light on them in a way. It doesn't like expose all of their sins, but it exposes some of them. So, but they know when some reference is made to those people who are coming from those backgrounds and who have read those books and read those incidents, they just get it. Oh, that's the incident it's talking about. So this is the kind of connotation that comes from walaqad alimtum. You knew. Walaqad alimtum alladina. You knew about those who. Alladina we know now. It's those who. I'tadaw. It comes from the root letters ain, dal, and waw. This means to like not take care of the boundaries of something. So, for example, somebody's trespassing into somebody else's property, or you're transgressing some limits. So there's a limit. So sometimes, so there is some limit of this is what you can do, and you're crossing that limit. Like, for example, if there's a red light and somebody kind of crosses that red light and goes right in the middle of the junction and they park their car there, what they've done is they've transgressed. They were supposed to stop at the stop sign before, much before, and instead they went ahead and they crossed that limit. And in this sense, it means that somebody who transgressed against the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There were some boundaries set by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and those who transgressed these boundaries. Minkum, from amongst you. Fis sabati, fi is in. As-sabati comes from the root letters sin, ba, and ta. It means to cut something. So Saturday, it literally refers to Saturday. So Saturday was a day which was meant to be in the Jewish tradition, and even it's today, to this date. It is the time when people were supposed to cut themselves off from worldly things, from day-to-day things, from trade, from business, from jobs and everything, and to devote their day in worship, to spend that time in worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to something like just let go of anything else and just take care of your basic needs. Obviously, you need food and water and sleep and all that stuff, but you wouldn't be engaged in any trade or commerce kind of activities, and you will be devoting yourself to so cutting yourself off from the worldly things. So this was a command given to them, and they transgressed in this command. فَقُلْنَا, so, fa is so, qul, said, and na is for we. So we said, and we here refers to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the royal we again. So we said, lahum, to them, la, to whom, them, kunu. Kunu is be, qiradatan, be or become, qiradatan means apes or monkeys. So literally apes or monkeys. Khasi'in comes from the root letters kha, Seen, and Hamza, and it means to be away from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to be despised, to be insulted, to be somebody who's like, not just like somebody who's like, when you look at that look or think of that person, you're like, oh, like that kind of a thing. So it's like somebody who's despised, somebody who's not liked, somebody who's away from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in many different ways. Okay, so وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْتُمُ الَّذِينَ اعْتَدَوْا minkum fit sabti faqulna lahum kunu qiradatan khasi'in. And you had already known about those who transgressed amongst you concerning the Sabbath, and we said to them, as in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to them, be apes, and not just apes, be despised. Be apes and like be despised on top of that. Faja'alnaha, sorry. Fa is so, ja'alna comes from the root letters jim, Ain, and Lam. So Ja'ala, we've learned this word before, Ja'alana, to make something. So Na here refers to we for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ha is this incident of Sabbath. Ha here refers to it, and it goes back to this whole incident of ayah number 65, that they were supposed to cut themselves off on the day of Saturday from their worldly things, from their worldly worship, but they transgressed in this matter. So this incident, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this incident. So, because of their transgression, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made this incident nakalan. Nakalan is from the root letters noon, kaf, and lam. And nakalan means something which is a punishment, but a punishment, not just any punishment, it's a punishment that becomes an example for other people. So, like an exemplary kind of a punishment that kind of like gives a lesson to not just the people who receive that punishment, but to others who witness this as well, or read this about this, or know about this at any time. lima, for those. So this matter, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it a deterrent punishment, an exemplary punishment for those, lima, for those, baina yadaiha. Baina yadaiha is an expression like, which means, literally it means, baina means in between, and yada means hands, right? So if we look at this expression is used in Quran many times, and in Arabic general usage as well. Baina yadaiha means like in between the hands. And when something is in between your hands, where is it in terms of where you are? It is right in front of you, right? So baina yadai is usually used in terms of when something is in front of you or right in ahead of you. So lima baina yadayha, if you look at this term together, baina yadayha means right in front of them. So it became a lesson for those people who were there at that time and who saw this. So people who were living at that time who heard about this, okay, supposing there was an incident that happened in the town next to where I live, and I hear about it. So at I'm still living at that particular time, so it is in front of me. Or I could be like there, and I went and I saw that those people who got this punishment. So this was like a big deal for me because it was right in front of me. So those people who were there at that time, in front of whom these other people got punishment. So baina yadayha means in front of them. Okay. فَجَعَلْنَاهَا نَكَالًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهَا. So we made this a deterrent punishment or an exemplary punishment for those who were in front of them, in front of these other people. وَمَا خَلْفَهَا, and for those, khalfaha, khalfa, after. Okay, khalfa, and ha, them. So those people who were in front of them, and for those people who were after them. After them as in people who came after them. So it could be people of Jewish tradition, of Bani Israel who came after them, of other people of the book who came after them, and it could also mean us who've come after them, and like they were Muslims before, and now we are, they were the people who submitted to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala before, and we are the people who made a covenant with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala now when we said La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. So we've made the commitment, we've come after them, and it is a lesson for us as well. So this was a lesson for those in front of them, and this is a lesson, whatever we're going to learn about this incident and the punishment that was given because of this incident, that was a punishment for those who came after them. Wa maw'idatan. Wa is and. Maw'idatan, it comes from the root letters waw, ain, and wa, right? And it means an instruction, wa. Like in Urdu we say waz, right? So what is waz? Waz is an instruction, and you're giving an instruction to somebody, but not just any instruction. It is a kind of instruction which you're trying to tell something good, something beneficial, something nice, and you're telling it in a way, and it is something that warms the heart. It is something that softens the heart of the other person, and whether it is in fear or out of love, but it softens the heart. It is meant to soften the heart and meant to give good information, good knowledge, and usually used for religious spiritual kind of knowledge. So that's what this word is usually used for. So so this incident and this punishment and learning about this story is not only a lesson for those people who were there before and a lesson for those who came after, but it is also a beneficial instruction which will warm the hearts and soften the hearts of whom? Lil muttaqeen. Lil muttaqeen, of those who have taqwa. And again, taqwa, again, as we talked about before, taqwa is a word that will come again and again in the Quran. SubhanAllah. It comes around 500 times in the Quran in different forms. And even in the beginning of Surah Baqarah, we learned ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. Right? So muttaqeen, who are the people of taqwa? These are the people of taqwa, and only these people who have taqwa, for them, this incident will become a source of wa'ad, like source of instruction, which will soften their hearts, which will bring them closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in that sense. Okay, so let's look at these two ayah once more. And you had already known about those who transgressed among you concerning the Sabbath, or the rule of the Saturday, and we said to them, be apes, despised. And we made it a deterrent punishment for those who were present and those who succeeded them, and a lesson for those who fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so let's go over it again. sorry, وَلَقَدْ عَلِمْتُمْ, and indeed you knew, right? So you had the knowledge. So again, this is referring to the Jews of Medina in front of the Prophet ﷺ, and these people, like I said before, knew this about this incident from their own records and from their own traditions, and it had been passed down. And even today, the Jews are very familiar with the incident of Saturday and what had happened with them, right? And what they had done was they had changed the order that was given to them, and hence their forefathers had got this punishment. And this incident actually happened at the time of Dawood alayhi salam. So the one of the prophets of Bani Israel, after they had come to the desert with Musa alayhi salam. Then Musa alayhi salam passed away in the 40 years. They did not get into any other thing. Then at the time of Yusha bin Nun, or Joshua, they conquered the city of Palestine. They went in. Later, they were another people had attacked them, and then at the time of Prophet Samuel, they came back, and Dawood alayhi salam was one of the soldiers, and then they got the they got back the city of Palestine, different cities of Palestine, and Dawood alayhi salam's time and Sulaiman alayhi salam's time, like we talked before, was a golden era at the time of the Bani Israel. This was a time when they had a lot of power and a lot of they were flourishing a lot. Everything was going good. They had a lot of advancements in terms of their culture, in terms of their knowledge, in terms of their trade and money and wealth and prosperity. So everything was very good at that time for them. It was supposed to be that golden era of that time. And in that time, slowly, like obviously, this even in Islam, we don't look at good and bad as what is happening in terms of how much wealth you have or how much prosperity you have, because both poverty and wealth could be a test, right? So poverty is a test of your patience, and wealth is a test of your gratitude and how much you're grateful and how you're going to utilize your wealth for, how you're going to utilize this for. So that is a test as well. So at this time, these people, they slowly, they had all these things, and slowly they started being tempted of different things as they had more wealth, more things. Um, they were not even shy of breaking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands openly. So a lot of corruption started coming into their common people, and everybody, like different people, started being very corrupt and kind of twisting the laws of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to their own ways. Like they wanted to act whatever they wanted to do. They had their own desire. They wanted to do things, and they were not shy of like twisting things. Oh no, maybe this doesn't mean this. Maybe this means that. This is not needed. Let me like this is too hard. No, this is not what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala meant with this command. Let's do this instead. So those kind of things started developing in these people. And as it is always the case, the test, whenever it's a test, haram always, anything which is haram, which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has told not to do, any of the limits, they always seem easy. And sometimes when a person is in a position of a little more power or a little bit more wealth, they get a lot of arrogance sometimes too, right? And halal, on the other hand, has some challenges. It's not easy to right away engage in something. Although halal makes things easy, halal, if you engage in things that are the boundaries, if somebody stays within the boundary of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to stay within the boundary, they have to make an effort. It's not easy to stay in the boundaries, but once you stay in the boundaries, it makes your life much easier, right? But when it's the other way around as well, when somebody breaks the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it seems very easy to break the boundaries of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But as someone sorry, you can't see my screen. Wait, can anybody else see my screen?
I can see you.
Okay, you can see. Sister Sana, maybe you can try refreshing then if you can't see, inshallah.
Yeah, I did that. I did refresh, and for some reason the screen got erased.
Oh, okay. I don't know what to do because others can see it. Maybe you can open it on in your app. I've just opened up ayah number 65 and 66. On any app, you can open that if you want. But I'm not
Okay.
going over word by word anyway. I'm explaining it, so you should be fine. But if you were interested, you can open on, or you're going to open your Mus'haf on ayah number 65 and 66 of Surah Baqarah.
Okay.
Okay, inshallah. Okay, so okay, so yeah, you can try restarting your device as well. Maybe that will work, inshallah. Okay, so halal things we were talking about it seems very difficult to sometimes follow the commandments, but then that makes our life easier. On the other hand, as we to disobey and to transgress might seem the easy and the fun thing to do, but that will make our life harder because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not give us any rule except it is for our own benefit. So there were these people, different people had started developing different kind of corruption in different people, as happens uh, in the history of people. Their iman goes up and down, and as their iman goes up and down, as their commitment to the deen of Allah goes up and down, so does their spiritual and moral condition. And as their moral behavior and things go down, then they start losing their position of honor as well, which happens to all people. And today is not no exception either. But anyway, let's go back to that. So the thing with these people was this is an incident about one particular tribe, not about alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah, sister, alhamdulillah. And thank you, Sister Alex, for your suggestion. So in sister, not in sister, in the tribe, sorry, this was an incident that happened in a particular tribe in Palestine. It was not all people who were involved in this. It was just a small town, the people of that town, and this place was called Ela, the tribe where this happened. And this particular tribe, it was across the sea, like next to the sea. And these people, the main occupation of these people were fishing. So they were basically fishermen by profession. And Saturday was the holy day, which was the order was given to them that this is a sacred day. You have to set apart this day. One day of the week has to be exclusively devoted to your worship of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And you will do just that. And you will not engage in anything else. Like for the Christians, it was the Sunday. And for us, it is the Friday, the Jummah prayer. And so for Muslims, it is the couple of, it's not the whole day, but actually it's a couple of hours, or an hour actually, if it comes out to for the prayer of Friday. Anyway, so the command was given, the order was given that you don't engage in any trade or anything. But slowly, these people, what they started doing was they started being tempted. And as the corruption was rising amongst them, there was a test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in front of them for them. And what used to happen was the day that they were supposed to refrain from the trade, there were so many fishes that would actually come to the shore and they would jump out of water and they could see like such big fishes in there. And when they would go back on a Sunday, there were no fishes. It was like the fishes were gone. So they wouldn't catch anything and everything. And which was a test for them if they are going to stick to the commandment, because they were already breaking a lot of other commandments in their day-to-day life, right? So they were having all these other commandments. They were engaging in behavior that they shouldn't be engaged in. There were a lot of things that they were violating. And this was a test that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent to them because they were already violating all of these other things. So if you don't follow some things that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you knowingly, and you try to engage in corrupt behavior, there are other tests that come to you and becomes even more easier to kind of do that, right? So what these people then did was they started finding ways to go around it. So what they said was, and this is the behavior of people who think, usually they think like they're very over smart, and they think, okay, we can do something. Okay, this is the thing, let me find a way around it. What can I do around it, right? So what they would do is on Saturday they would go and they would tie one end. Some people would tie one end of the cord to the tail of the fish and the other end to the outside, and then on Sunday they would go and take it out, and they would say, "Oh, we didn't fish on Saturday. We took the fish on Sunday, and that was we fished only on a Sunday, not on a Saturday." Some other people, what they did was they dug holes. They dug wells on the shore, near the shore, and when water would come, fish would fall in. Fish would come with it on the Saturday. They would fall in these wells, and then when the water would go back, then the fish would get trapped in these wells, and then they would just go and pick them out on a Sunday. Or they would put, some people, what they do is they would go and put their nets on a Friday evening, and they would leave their nets there and do nothing on Saturday. And then on Sunday, they would go and get their nets out, and all the fishes would be there, and then they would sell it, right? So what they were doing was there's one thing to disobey the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and the other thing is to disobey but to pretend that you're obeying. and to try to deceive the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to try to deceive people what they're doing, and to think that you're getting away with it, and think that you're being so smart, but in fact it's kind of a stupidity, because if you think about it, who can deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? There's nobody who can. You can deceive people, but you cannot deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and He knows what you're doing, right? And what, instead of being a bit let's say conscious or a bit embarrassed about what they were doing, they were actually very proud of being able to deceive others, and like they were making a mockery of the commands, right? So, and what happens when somebody makes a mockery of the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And anytime something, we learned about that in the ayah of Surah Baqarah, ayah number 9. يخادعون, if anybody remembers, يخادعون الله والذين آمنوا وما يخدعون إلا أنفسهم وما يشعرون. They think that they're trying to deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and those who believe, but they do not deceive anyone except themselves, although they don't know it, right? So what they were thinking was, they were thinking, I'm deceiving this one and that one, but what they forget is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows the heart, the inside of the heart, whatever is happening. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is very well aware of each person, what is in their heart, why is anybody doing what they're doing, and He knows exactly what it is, right? So although these people were thinking they're doing it, but they were deceiving no one except themselves. And while they were deceiving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's order, they were trying to distort it. And there's a principle in Islam called that punishment fits the crime, right? So they were making a crime, they were crying. What was their crime? Was that they were distorting the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if we look at some ayahs before that we studied in the last few weeks, it was their regular practice. What they were doing was they were distorting the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? When there's a word, they're trying to twist the word and create another meaning out of it, and twist the word. When they got a blessing of man and salwa, they got one blessing from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they wanted to change it to something else, right? So they were trying to always distort something. They were told, do this, and they're like, no, but like, can we like do it like this, or like, so they would, as opposed to what we learn about the Prophet ﷺ and his followers, was that they used to say sami'na wa ata'na, right? So we hear and we obey. And what these people used to do was they hear and they said they were obeying, or they said they were not obeying, but they would kind of like twist everything a little bit. Let's not do it like this, can we do it like this? And then, like, if you keep twisting things, and this was the height of it, what they did was, on the matter of Saturday, which they twisted the whole command, and they made a fun out of it, that, oh, we're not doing anything on a Saturday, come on. Anybody tried to tell them that, they'd be like, we are not doing anything, come on. How are you saying that we are doing it on a Saturday? On Saturday we are sitting with you, we're not there on a Saturday, so we are just fishing on a Sunday and everything, right? And according to one of the scholars, the punishment that they got was, here it mentions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said to them, be apes, as in they were made into apes, into like monkeys, and which were despised and insulted, and their honor was taken away in that sense. And one of the scholars said that the older people amongst them were made into pigs, and the younger people were made into apes. We have more description about this at other places in the Quran as well. So, for example, in Surah Al-Araf, in ayah, which is Surah number 7, in ayah 163 to 165, we have a little more detail about this incident. So I'll just read it from there. It says, and ask them about the town that was by the sea, when they transgressed in the matter of the Sabbath, when their fish came to them openly on their Sabbath day, and the day they had no Sabbath, they, as in the fish, did not come to them. Thus did we give them trial, because they were defiantly disobedient. And when a community amongst them said, why do you advise or warn a people whom Allah is about to destroy or to punish with a severe punishment? They, or the advisors, said, to be absolved before your Lord, and perhaps they may fear him. And when they forgot that by which they had been reminded, we saved those who had forbidden evil, and seized those who wronged with a wretched punishment, because they were defiantly disobeying. So what happened was, when these people started disobeying and doing this, amongst the people of the town, there were three groups that were formed. One group was the group who was indulged in this behavior, who were digging these wells and tying those cords and trying to find ways to fish, and yet to say that we are not fishing. And then some of them were openly defiantly disobedient, and some were even like, we can just do it. It's not such a big deal. It's fine. They would start doing it anyway. So there were different people. So these people, there was one group who was sinning, who were transgressing, who were crossing the limits of said by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had told them through Dawud al-Islam, obviously, that they are not to engage in any trade activities, but they were still doing it. So these were the people who were sinning. Then there was a second group of people who were trying to get these people to stop and saying, listen, like, we are the people who believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This behavior does not suit us. And we should trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Don't worry, pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and keep doing your prayers, and then keep going back to your work, and inshallah Allah ta'ala will forgive us, and you will start getting the fishes again in a few days. So don't worry, let's come on, we are all the worshippers of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Let's make an effort and go back to our way. So these people who were their well-wishers, their family members, their friends, and their community members, they were trying to get them to stop, and they're advising them and reminding them about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's order. Then there was a third group among these people who were sort of, you can call it like a neutral group, who wanted to be with all people, did not want any conflicts, and wanted to keep everyone happy and everything. And then they were also like, listen, these people who are doing all these sinning and all these things, they are not, like, this third group was not engaged in fishing and everything, or doing any trade activities or thing on a Saturday. But their reasoning was, see, those people who are doing, we are not doing it. So those people who are doing these things, they are doing haram, they're going to go to Jahannam anyway, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give them a punishment. And they were telling to the second group of people, why do you bother? Why are you bothering, like, advising them and wasting your time on them? These people are not going to do anything, so let's just be happy with ourselves. So these third group of people were not sinning, but they were not even advising the people, and they were telling the second group of people who were the advisors. So the third group was telling the advisors, why are you bothering? Like, come on, let's just take care of ourselves. We'll be fine. Like, we are good. We are all well, and like, we are on the guidance. We are on the right one. So everybody else is kind of like, they can all go. They can do whatever. You're wasting your time with them. Don't do this. Like, we're all, and they were like happy with themselves, sort of a thing, right? And subhanallah, when the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came, this about turning into apes, everyone except, and from Surah Al-Araf, the part that I learned from them, from ayah number 164, when it said, when a community among them said, why do you advise or warn a people whom Allah is about to destroy or punish with a severe punishment, right? So when they told the second group of people, why are you doing this? And the people who were advisors, they said, we are doing this to be absolved before your Lord. Perhaps they may fear him. So there are two reasons. We are doing it that maybe, just maybe, the people who are sinning, they might listen to us. Somebody might listen. If there are 1,000 people, maybe one person will listen to me. Maybe one person will kind of change their ways and like start fearing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Maybe. So I'll keep advising. If they listen, it's okay. If they don't listen, it's okay. But my job as is to advise, and I'm doing that. And second is for me to have an excuse before my Lord, that when I meet my Lord, I know I'm going to meet my Lord one day. At least I tried. Sorry, excuse me. Yeah. So they said that at least we have this excuse before our Lord that we tried. So we have these two reasons for doing it. Right? And when the punishment came, actually, it was only the second group who was saved from the punishment. So both the first and the third group were given a punishment, right? And when the punishment came, in front of the second group, so there was a wall that came in between them, and they were not able to see the sin. So one day, when the punishment came and only the second group was saved, they could still recognize each other after that. So the first group and the third group, they became monkeys. They were turned into apes, right? Some scholars say they were literally turned into apes, like physically and everything, and some said that they developed a kind of a disease in which like a face changes and they get a very high fever, and after some time a person dies. After a few hours or within a couple of days a person dies. So there was a certain kind of a disease which was sent to them. Some scholars say that like they were literally changed into an apes, and Allahu Ta'ala alam. And some people say it was like a very severe moral spiritual decay, that they became like animals, and they lost all sense of morality and spirituality and everything. And no matter which one it is, like for us speaking, how I look at it as the God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the one who has made monkeys the monkeys, is it any hard for him to turn human beings into monkeys? It's no big deal. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says kun and it happens, right? He's sahibe kun fayakun, right? So he says be and it happens. So it could be either, no matter what happens, but the purpose for us is to take the lesson from the story. What happened was these people were turned into apes, whether it was physically and spiritually, or just spiritually. It's so they turn into apes. And just if we imagine that there are some people in a community who've turned into apes, who've changed, who's like if for us, if we have a few extra hair on our face, we feel so embarrassed, right? And we feel like, oh my god, like what is this, right? And like people want beauty treatments and laser treatments and waxing and threadings and this and that. And these people, when they turn into apes, they have like so much hair and so much embarrassment. If you just think of like the whole body is covered with hair and your skin is changed and your nose is changed and your eyes are like changed now, your hands are changed. Instead of walking on the two legs, they're walking on all fours. If you just imagine like a human being who's turned into an ape and then still being in the same people, like still going to they could still recognize their own wife and children, and they could still recognize their friends, and their friends could recognize them, but their look had changed. And like if you just imagine that, it would have been, other than that, the whole punishment of the physical punishment, there's also so much like of a human dignity sort of a thing, right? Like to be a human being is a privilege by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's a gift that has been given to us. And just for that to be changed, it would have been so hard for, even that's a punishment in itself. And you're walking around in the same people, and they can see that you are one of those who's been turned into an animal, and then to be looked at like that, right? So there would have been so much embarrassment. And not just the punishment had many forms to it. It wasn't just a physical punishment, but they were turned into apes, despised. So khasi'ina has like an added connotation to it, like that it is not just their bodies, but it was the kind of humiliation that they now had to experience because of it. And one of the people actually came to the Prophet ﷺ, and he asked them about this, that okay, so is it that the monkeys and apes that we see today, is it possible that some of these are from those generation of those apes and those monkeys which were from those people of Bani Israel who were turned into apes? And the apes and monkeys that we see today, are they from those people? And the Prophet ﷺ replied that no, because the apes and pigs, they existed even before they were given this punishment. And whenever any generation is given this kind of a punishment, whenever an adab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes on that generation, then their generation don't go ahead. What that means is their race comes to an end. So these people who became apes then would not have any more children. And there's another opinion that within 3 days these people tasted this punishment, and then within 3 days they died. So they died within 3 days of having this kind of, whether it was in a form of a disease which changed their physical features and which changed their ways, and which all hair grew out on their body and they became like apes, or it was just a moral or spiritual punishment, but within 3 days they passed away. So they got a taste of the punishment, and then after that punishment they passed away. But they, either ways, the animals that we see today are the animals only. They're not people who are from that time. And the Prophet ﷺ told us about that, alhamdulillah. So there's no confusion about that part. Right. So even today, if we look at it, like every part of our body, listen to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands. Like there are some parts of our body which we do not have our control over. Like our heart beats involuntary. We don't need to do anything to pump our heart. And our lungs are working by themselves. Our breath is mostly working by ourselves. In fact, when we are conscious of our breath, then breathing becomes harder. When we are not conscious of it, then it's easier to breathe, right? And in normal conditions, obviously. And so when every part of our body listens to the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then the things that He has given us a control over, and when He gives us some commands to follow them, then it is proper for us to follow those commands, right? And when we don't follow those commands, then there is a repercussion to it. And sometimes when somebody goes way beyond the limits, when somebody is knowingly going ahead and crossing all the limits and being proud of that, then there's a punishment that came from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to all these previous people, right? And um, The problem happens when somebody doesn't even consider a sin to be a sin. So this was not just doing a mistake, but also to be proud of it, right? So like some people explain it like different sins have kind of a smell, like deeds have a kind of a smell, and sins have a kind of a bad smell. That's why they say when a person's lying or cheating, angels don't like to go near that person because it's like there's a bad smell, like a spiritual sort of a smell. We can't obviously smell it, but it's like the angels like to come nearer to a person who's trying to do good deeds. Angels try to come near to that person because they want to be near that person because there's a good smell coming from that person and everything, right? And so if we find ourselves doing mistakes, any kind of mistake or a sin, we are all human beings. We do, we can and we do. Each one of us does mistakes. But the point is, as soon as we realize that we have done a mistake, we seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But the problem happens when instead of seeking forgiveness, once we realize we've done something, we become proud of it. If we think about it, what was the difference between Adam alayhi salam and Iblis, right? Even and that's the first story we learned when we started learning the stories. And the first story in the human history that we learned in the Quran, in the order as well, was the story of Adam alayhi salam and Iblis. Both of them did a mistake, but Adam alayhi salam, as soon as he learned that okay, I made a mistake, he and his wife Hawa radiallahu anha, they both turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and sought forgiveness, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave them and send them to the earth as Khalifa. On the other hand, Iblis, when he found that he was not, not only disobeyed Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but he was proud of it. He was like, why should I bow down against, in front of this human being who's inferior to me, right? So arrogance was something that made Iblis not only disobey, but even after disobedience, he was not he didn't have that humility to seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So what is this kind of behavior? It's clearly getting inspired by Iblis in that sense that you commit a mistake and then you're proud of making that mistake. So these people, when they were doing these mistakes, they were being proud of doing these mistakes. If we look at ourselves, like even if we look at unfortunately, many of people in the Muslim world today, we find similar kind of behaviors as well. So, for example, we learn from some sayings of the Prophet ﷺ that the reward of reading Surah Al-Ikhlas, which is Qul Huwallahu Ahad, is if you read it 3 times, the reward is as much as if you have read the whole Quran, right? And there is a valid hadith to it and everything. And but some people mistaught it as just saying, okay, I have read Surah Ikhlas 3 times. I don't need to study the Quran. I don't need to find out the Quran and what the Quran says and everything. That's not what that means. That's twisting the words and taking out a meaning which does not exist just because you are lazy and you don't want to study the Quran and you would just want to use it as an excuse and say, okay, I've just read the Surah Ikhlas 3 times, so that's good enough. I don't need to study the Quran. Or some people today say that you know what, I don't see the logic in doing hijab or something. Like having a parda or having modesty in the heart is enough. You don't need to do hijab and all. What's the point, right? And some people say it's one thing to say, and there's a difference here. There could be someone who's not doing the hijab but saying, okay, I understand that it's a command of Allah, but I feel a bit weak. Or there could be another person who's saying, you know what, I'm not sure if it's the command of Allah. Can you like explain to me where in the Quran it says that and where in the hadith it says that, and then I could make my informed decision. Now that's a different person, and that's totally justified. Questions like that are totally justified, and you can seek the answer from a scholar, and then once you're convinced that yes, it is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you will do it. That's one person. There's a second person who says, okay, you know what, I understand that hijab is a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, but I feel weak. I feel like I don't know if my friends will judge me, or I feel if my parents will judge me, or my children, or my husband, or my community will judge me. And although I feel I should do it, but I feel like I feel very like weak, and I feel like I can't bear that when people are like looking at me like that or talking to me in that. I don't think I'll be able to stand up to it. So although I know I should do it and I feel bad about it, like I seek forgiveness from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala off and on whenever I think about it and everything. So again, that person is again different person. But now there's a third person who understands that you should do it, but and he or she has got all the evidences and she's understood it well that yes, you need to do the hijab and it is a command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then he says, Nah, but like you know what? It was that time, like that time you needed to do the hijab and all that stuff. It doesn't matter now. We're living in like 2021 now. Come on. And you just be modest in your heart, and that's good enough. And then I think we're okay for now, like, so it's okay. Now this person knowingly is making fun of the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Now that's transgression now. So there's a difference in the attitude that is being highlighted here. So also, for example, in some places in the Muslim world today, you will find that, for example, there are inheritance laws in Islam, and they're very clear inheritance laws that we'll learn later, inshallah ta'ala. May Allah take us to Surah Nisa one day, and we are able to finish Surah Baqarah and Surah Al Imran, and then go to Surah Nisa. In Surah Nisa, there are a lot of inheritance laws, and we will learn that daughters are entitled to inheritance as much as the sons. Like it could be the sons are given double because they have more responsibilities and they're supposed to spend on their sisters and their mothers and everyone, although a daughter's money is her own, and there are different reasons for it. But anyway, the long story short, the thing is, daughters have an entitlement to inheritance from their parents and other places. But the thing is, in today's world, sometimes we see, even in some Muslim countries, people who practice Islam, and they would say that, you know what, we will not give inheritance, but instead, you know what, we'll give dowry. Now again, dowry is not allowed in Islam, but in especially in the South Asian, Indian, Pakistan, that region, dowry is a very common practice and a social evil in that region. But people would say, no, we gave so much dowry, so we gave so much dowry to her family. Now we don't need to give her the inheritance. But what they don't realize is inheritance was meant for the girl herself. Dowry is a gift that they impose upon themselves, which they were not supposed, they didn't have to give it, but they imposed it upon themselves and they gave it. But then who did that go to? It went to the family, the in-laws of their daughter. It didn't go to the girl herself. And that, over a period of time, not following the commands of Allah creates a disbalance in the society. The girl who would have had her own kind of little savings and then be able to do some things that she wants to do without having to kind of like look for support here and there. So she doesn't have that kind of a independence in that sense, right? So not following the command of Allah creates that thing, and twist the people are twisting the command of Allah when they're saying this, that okay, we've given dowry, so we don't need to give inheritance. Islam never asked you to give dowry, and Islam asks you to give inheritance. So you're doing double the crime here while saying that, right? Another concept, so there are a lot of other evils that you'll find. So for example, there's a concept of halala you'll find in South Asian region and many other places in the world, right? And it is all of these practices, they may look like somebody's being very smart at that time by doing this, by creating all these loopholes, creating these loopholes and finding these loopholes, and then saying, you know what, it doesn't say this, it exactly says this, so we can get away with that, and that's fine, no problem, right? It may look a bit smart at that time and a bit successful at that time, but the thing is, they're not thinking what they're trying to go against. It is the command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not a command of, like, it's not me telling you or the other person telling the other person. It's Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's limits that you're crossing. And he doesn't get deceived by anything that you're doing. You can deceive people. Me and you, we can deceive people. We can deceive some people sometime. We can deceive a lot of people many times, but we can never, ever, ever deceive Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows exactly what we do, when we do, and how we do it, and why we do it, right? And another thing is, to create deviances, to create deviations in religious practices, and then to just start following them and saying, knowingly doing that. There's one thing to kind of, okay, this is what I did not know any better, and this is what I always knew, so I practice it. That's one thing. But then to knowingly create deviations, and just because you wanted to do something or you did not want to do something, and then to kind of find a way to get away with it, right? There's no reward in that. We might be deceiving ourselves that, okay, by creating, so for example, somebody who's giving dowry and they give like lot of dowry. So instead of like on their daughter's getting married and they give her family like say hundreds of thousands of dowry or things in that, and they deceive them. So it's like, okay, now we gave too much, we gave even more than what she would have got for inheritance. Now why do we need to give inheritance? Now you're deceiving yourself. You might sound like you're so generous because in the society you might get like, oh my god, they spent so much on their daughter's wedding, and oh my god, they did so much, and you're spending all that for the sake of show off or this thing, but you're not deceiving anyone with that. You're not, and there is no reward in that, right? So even for example, if I were to come here and I were to be sharing, teaching or sharing whatever I have learned, and I would be giving this knowledge for the sake of showing other people, see, I have so much knowledge and I got so much knowledge from here and there. If I was doing it for that purpose, and if I was trying to do that, I'm not going to get any reward. If you were coming with the right intention, you will get all the reward, but I would not get anything. May Allah protect me and all of us from that. So it's our intentions and how we do things, how much we try our best, to the best of our ability and to the best of our knowledge, to follow Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's deen. That's what protects us, right? If we knowingly make fun and knowingly we deviate and disform and distort things, then there's a punishment. And sometimes the punishment comes in this world itself. And there is a punishment in the afterlife as well. So we have to be very, very careful about this. So these people, they were distorting the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and as a result, as a punishment, they were distorted themselves in physically and spiritually. And in the next ayah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, so what happened as a result of what they did? When they did this, what happened was, فَجَعَلْنَاهَا نَكَالًا لِمَا بَيْنَ يَدَيْهَا وَمَا خَلْفَهَا وَمَوْعِظَةً لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. So we made it, they're turning into apes, this whole incident of them getting this punishment, in which was a very well known incident in the, and even today we'll find in the places where we go, where it is predominantly Jewish communities, it will look like a ghost town on a Saturday. Like they take it very seriously on not doing anything on that Saturday and everything. And so you will find the roads are deserted, where it's like mostly Jewish neighborhoods. You will not find people outside or anything. They will spend that day inside, right? So the thing is, this incident is so well known, and they are so this incident and whatever happened to them, this became an example for all the people who were there at that time. And this whole town, for the neighboring towns, so people who were around them who were engaged in some corruption, for them to know of this town which went way beyond the limit and got this punishment, it became like, oh my god, I should correct my ways, you know what, like this. So it became an example for them to kind of look inside and change their own way. So it was example for the people who were at that time. And it was also an example for people at that time, in the sense that people who were advising them, they got a kind of reinforcement that, you be steadfast yourself. The people, and another thing was that don't go into their way, right? And um, by next generations, it means all the other people, so all the other Bani Israel, all the other generations that came after, and also us, right? So what are these lessons that are there for us, and what are these lessons that we learn from these things, right? For after them. But what happens with these lessons is, we'll go into this after the lessons. Some of the lessons that we'll cover is that this will be a wa'ad, a maw'idatan for the people who have taqwa. So some of the lessons, just going over some of the lessons, and then we could all share if we think of any lessons from this. First of all is, the stories in the Quran, they are not for the purpose of entertainment. Any story or any incident, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had the whole history of mankind to tell us things from in the Quran. Yet he has picked these incidents, these very incidents, to tell us from the whole thousands upon thousands upon thousands of years of human history, from Adam alayhi salam up till the time of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He handpicked these lessons for us to learn, and these incidents for us to learn. So there's something very special and very meaningful for us to learn from these incidents. So first of all is to remember that any story or any incident that we learn in the Quran, it is not for the sake of entertainment. It is not for the sake of pointing fingers at anybody else, or it is not for the sake of feeling self-righteous about ourselves, that okay, Jewish community was like this and we are Muslims and we are better and we are this. No, it is, the point of these lessons is to look in the mirror of ourselves and to look at ourselves and find out what we can do to make ourselves better and closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For the disobedient people, it is a lesson to correct their ways. So like the people in neighboring towns at that time, kind of learnt about this town or went and saw these people, and they were like, oh no, we have to change our ways. We cannot disobey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's commands. We should not transgress in the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? We should try to contain ourselves, and we should try to change our ways and correct our ways. For obedient people, it is a lesson to be steadfast, to stick to what, to be strong in their deen, to hold on to their deen, and to get closer and closer to obeying Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His commands. For people who are doing mistakes and who might be doing some mistakes or some sins, but they know it's wrong, the the lesson is, don't use ways that you can to manipulate the system and follow your own desires. There's a system in different places have different systems, and we all know that people, there are many times that people manipulate systems to get their ways around, to get whatever they want to do, things around. And we all know a lot of examples of that. But the point is, what Quran's teaching us is, don't try to manipulate things to your, just because you want to do something and you don't want to do something. It is something that, try to follow the system of a different place that you are in. Try to follow the commands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to the best of your ability, and try to get better and better every day, right? And another thing is, when this ayah says that this was a lesson for people before, in front of them, and for whoever comes after them, means it's a lesson there for us as well. Quran is a timeless guidance. It is not just then, it is a lesson for us now, and it will be a lesson for the people throughout the ages until the day of judgment. Quran will continue to offer timeless guidance to people who follow it, who make an effort to follow it, right? Another thing is, that when these people, who were the second group of people who were advising the other people, when they said, when they were reminding others, and some other people were telling them, why are you reminding these people? What did they say? They say, we are reminding them so that maybe somebody will listen and save. So first of all, we need to have compassion and care for helping each other, for saving other people. When we are giving somebody a reminder, we are not giving them a reminder to say that we are better than them and they are worse than us, or we are right and they are wrong. No, we are giving, whenever we are giving a reminder of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the reason we giving a reminder is, we genuinely care for them, and we genuinely want the best for them. We genuinely want whatever is the best for ourselves and them, because we love them for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We love our Muslim brothers and sisters, and no matter which area, region, color, nationality, whatever place they come from, whatever group they come from, we want the best for them. And to the best of our ability, even if we find somebody doing something wrong, we advise them. But when we advise them from a place of love and care. We don't advise them from a place of arrogance or self-righteousness. We advise them for their benefit. We want to save them, we want to help them, right? And there's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ to the effect of that, whenever any one of you sees an evil, let him try to change it with the hand, and if he's not able to do so, then let him try to change it with his tongue, and then if he's not even able to do so, then with his heart, and that is the weakest of faith. So what does that mean? Means that when we see some of our brother or somebody of our sister or somebody doing some act which is not right, which is clearly against the commands of Allah, we should, and it is our duty to try to stop them with love and care, and we should do our best. But if we are not able to do so, if the situation is not conducive for us to do so, or if we know that the other person is not going to listen to it, or we are not in the position that we can stop the other person or something, then let's try to say it with our tongue. What that means is, let's try to give a beneficial reminder, a soft, gentle, beneficial reminder. And if we are not even able to do that, like depending on whatever the situation is and whatever our relationship with that person is, then we should at least do it in our heart. That means we should at least make dua for that person. Ya Allah, make that person see the truth. Make that person see that this is wrong, and help them to get over this mistake, or this sin, or this thing that they're encouraging it. Because Ya Allah, I love them because you told me to love them. They're my Muslim brother or Muslim sister, and I want the best for them. Ya Allah, I tried, or I couldn't try. I wanted to, but I couldn't stop them, and I'm not in a position to stop them. So please, you help them, but accept my dua for them, right? So we should make dua like that for our brothers and sisters, like that. Another lesson for us is that we have to guard ourselves against arrogance. So when we see somebody doing something wrong, one tendency, one way that shaitan doesn't leave any of us alone. First of all, shaitan goes to each one of us in, but he goes in different ways depending on what we are doing. When somebody is not sinning, shaitan would go to them. This looks so nice. This looks so. Why don't you just try it once? There's no harm in trying it once. If some people are like doing something wrong, you're just sitting with them. You're not really doing it, right? But once you sit with people who are doing something wrong long enough, you don't feel the immunity. You don't feel it's bad anymore. You feel like, yeah, it's okay. What's the big deal? It's not such a big deal anyway. Everybody's doing it. So, like, if I do it, what's the big deal? And another thing, another way Shaitan gets to somebody who's doing good deeds is Shaitan would push them to do more and more and more good deeds, right? So, for example, Shaitan would push someone to do a lot of voluntary good deeds, and make them ignore the first good deed. So one of the ways of Shaitan is that he would push someone to do so many like so many nafil acts, so many like things of that. And so, for example, somebody is say studying throughout the day or waking up in the night for tahajjud, but then missing their fajr prayer, right? So this is an example that one of my teachers always gives is like, if you are the person who know you're going to miss your fajr, then do not wake up for tahajjud, because like getting up for the night prayer is after you have established your 5 prayers. So your first in our religion, our first, our obligatory deeds are always have a level up over our optional deeds. So first of all, so if you're trying to memorize, for example, if you're trying to memorize the Quran, or if you're trying to study anything, our first job is to establish our 5 prayers. And then once you've memorized all those prayers, then memorize more things and everything. But if you have not even memorized your prayers and your sayings in the prayers, and your prayers not only done, then don't go into memorizing other things or putting your mind in this thing and that thing. And like for example, right now we are living in the age of information overload, right? We have this knowledge and this knowledge and this knowledge and this knowledge. And if we keep bombarding ourselves with one thing after the other, we will lose the important things. So Islam doesn't stop us from going all these places, but there has to be a balance. We have to do our first things first, right? And that's how Shaitan would get some people who are trying to do good, but pushing them towards like optional goods, and making them ignore the obligatory good deeds, right? So that's another way of Shaitan. One other way is somebody who's trying to do balanced and doing good things and everything, and getting that balance as well. Then Shaitan would not leave them as well, because then he would come to them in form of arrogance, like, okay, look at these people. These people are so deviated. I'm like, thank goodness I'm not like that. And when that thing comes, what does that mean? It's like you're getting like a seed of it. It's not grown yet, but you're getting a seed of arrogance, of self-righteousness. And what does that? Our Prophet ﷺ told us in a hadith to the effect of that somebody who has in his heart even the weight of a mustard seed of pride. A mustard seed is how little, right? It's like even on our finger you can hardly see it. It's so small. Somebody who has even that weight of pride in his heart will not enter paradise, right? So our goal is paradise. Our goal is first of all to help other people or to correct other people. We have to make sure that we don't lose our own guidance for the sake of guiding other people. Like in they say in airplanes, we have to, before we put the mask on other people, we have to put the mask on ourselves first before we put the mask on the young or the old. So same way, we have to develop and protect our own guidance first before doing that. So when we are working with other people or sharing some things and something, we have to protect our own self, in the sense that we don't develop any arrogance, or we don't develop any self-righteousness, right? And that we have to protect ourselves from pride. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect all of us from pride, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us humble people who are pleasing to him, and who are pleased with him as well, right? So that's another thing. We have to protect ourselves from these things. Another lesson that we learn here is that the people who have taqwa, those are the people who will get these lessons and get beneficial instruction out of these. They are the ones who would find maw'idatan in this, right? So whose heart, when they read this kind of incidents, that okay, there were these people who transgressed the limits of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and they turned into apes, And not just apes, they were sent away from the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My Allah, my God, that I'm trying to get near, there are some actions that might make me away, that might push me away from the mercy of my God. I have to be careful of them, right? So what happens is when I learn about these things, if I learn about these things, when we have taqwa, when somebody of us has taqwa, these incidents will make them fearful. They'll like shiver them from the inside. They will be like, Ya Allah, please do not be upset with me. Ya Allah, I'm afraid. I don't want you to be upset with me. Please tie me to your commands. I don't want to transgress against your commands knowingly or unknowingly. There might be times I something happens knowingly. There might be times something happens unknowingly. But either way, Ya Allah, forgive me whenever this happens because I'm a human being. I'm weak. Ya Allah, Ta'ala, forgive me. I'm like a baby. I'm taking steps. I'm taking my baby steps, and I might fall here and there, but I will not do it intentionally. Ya Allah Ta'ala, protect me from it. So the people who have taqwa, the people who are scared, who love Allah Ta'ala so much that they are so scared of upsetting him, they are like, Ya Allah, they say like, La takilni, Ya Allah, don't leave me. Don't leave me alone. For one of the du'as of the Prophet ﷺ is, Ya Allah, don't leave me alone for even the blink of an eye, right? Don't leave me alone. Be with me all the time. Don't leave me, push me away from your mercy. I'm in the need of your mercy, right? So when we are trying to be the people of taqwa, we rush towards good deeds. We protect ourselves from bad deeds. But what's the purpose of both? The purpose of both is to gain the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and to protect ourselves from the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And whenever we learn about any people or anything who were pushed away and whom Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was so upset with and he was not at all pleased with, then we fear for ourselves first. And that's one lesson that we learn is that first of all, we have to work towards taqwa, right? ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. We learned at the beginning of Surah Baqarah that people who do not have taqwa or who are not even working towards taqwa, when they learn about these incidents, they'll just read about it, brush past it. Okay, yeah, this happened. Oh yeah, this happened, and they'll move on. They won't feel anything, right? And they won't even want to feel anything. Let's put it like that. Sometimes our iman goes up and down. Sometimes some things hit us a lot. Sometimes we are in that frame of mind. Some things don't hit us that much, but at least we want it to hit. At least we want the Quran to give us a lesson. So the people who are not even working towards taqwa, who are not even wanting to attain taqwa, they will not feel anything. They will just read about this instance. Oh yeah, those people, they did this. Such deviated people, and they'll move on. They wouldn't get the lesson. The lesson was meant to be for them, for the people who have taqwa, who are rushing to good deeds, who are wanting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's. I think they are the people who will get lesson. This book is a guidance for those people. Those people will not just use these ayat to read and recite and to impress other people. Those people will actually get guidance out of this for their own life, for their own way of living their life, right? And this is somebody who's afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not create deviations in the first place. Somebody who has taqwa, that kind of person will not create whatever they want. They will not try to create meanings out of the ayat of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of whatever they want. They will look at the context. They will not move things out of context and create another meaning, because different things mean different things in a context. So when we are studying an ayah of the Quran, for example, or we are studying a hadith, for example, we have to see what did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala say when he said it, what was the time of revelation, what was going on, what is the lesson behind it, what is going on in the ayahs before and after it, what are the other places in the Quran. Like for example, this ayah we learned in Surah Al-Araf, which we read before, that there were other parts in the Quran that talked about the same incident. So when somebody is looking at the tafsir, or somebody who becomes an advanced student of tafsir, they learn how to look at different portions of the Quran and get details of that incident from different portions, and then have a balanced opinion, and not just create, okay, this means this, oh, I'll create this meaning out of this. No, that's not how it works. Right in the beginning of Surah Baqarah, we learned Alif Lam Mim, meaning that this book, the explanation of this book you cannot just learn from a dictionary. The way to learn this book is to learn how the Prophet ﷺ taught us, right? And when we learn it that way, then we learn it properly, right? So that's another thing, that anybody who is who's afraid of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not create these kind of deviations. Another thing we learned in Surah Baqarah before, this also reminds us of something that we learned in Surah Baqarah before in ayah number 26. We learned in ayah number 26 that the people, I'll just actually read it. Right, so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Yahdi bi kathira wa, sorry, I'll just get to it here. Yudillu bihi kathira wa yahdi bihi kathira wa ma yudillu bihi illa al-fasiqeen. In Surah Baqarah, ayah number 26, we learn that through the same Quran, through this very Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guides many people and He misguides many people. But He does not misguide anyone except the defiantly disobedient, except the people who are engaged in fisk, who are fasiqeen. Right? So what does that mean? That means that as long as we try to get closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as long as our heart is in place, right, no matter where we are learning from or who we are learning from, if anybody even tells us something wrong or deviated, as long as my heart is there towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, my heart is turned to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and I'm trying to seek His pleasure and I'm making dua to Him in my own time, Allah ta'ala will protect me. Even if somebody tries to give me some kind of a deviation, then Allah ta'ala will protect me and Allah ta'ala will show me that this is wrong and this is right. So the thing is, the first important thing is to protect our heart from fisk and to move it towards taqwa and to do different things as the Prophet ﷺ taught us. For example, we do Hajj. We follow and we do the Hajj the way the Prophet ﷺ taught us. We do wudu like the Prophet ﷺ taught us. We do ghusl like the Prophet ﷺ taught us. We pray our salah like the Prophet ﷺ taught us. Right? The Quran tells us to pray salah, but the Quran doesn't tell us how to pray. It doesn't tell us how to do ruku, how to do sajda, what to say in your sajda, what to say in your ruku, what to say when you're doing your qiyam. That we will learn from the ways of the Prophet ﷺ. So we learn different things from different ways, and then when we learn it, and yes, we will, each one of us will come across different, like some other people, and sometimes we might get confused. Okay, what is right, what is wrong? Somebody saying this, somebody saying that. Okay, I'm confused between these two things. There is a way to find out what is the right thing, and the way is keep your heart to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Keep your heart and keep praying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ya Allah, you are my Lord. I'm doing this for you. I'm learning for your sake. I'm trying to get closer to you. And you, it's your promise. Your promise in the Quran that yudillu bihi kathira wa yahdi bihi kathira wa ma yudillu bihi illa al-fasiqeen. That through the same Quran you will guide some, you'll misguide some, but you will not misguide until somebody is deviant to begin with. Somebody's corrupt to begin with. Somebody's so corrupt that the corruption's oozing out of them. And you will not misguide any of them, right? So the lesson here for us is that follow the ways of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and try to develop that taqwa. Taqwa is the key. And I'll end here for today, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. If anybody wants to share anything, please go ahead. Alhamdulillah, we finished in time. I'll stop the recording so anybody can share anything, inshallah. Jazakallah khair.